The conclusion of human history. 3. God cannot establish good and build his kingdom of heaven without first destroying evil and hell. Judgment in the last days and succeeding. For God to achieve this will be brought about by the Word of God, the new revelations that God will give us through the returned Messiah. Those who live a life of evil will look to the last days with terror, while those who obey God's will, and await the return of the Messiah, will look to them with hope and joyful anticipation. Investing all his heart and love, God has been constantly working to bring about the ideal world and to arrive at the last days. But unfortunately, whenever God has tried to reach the last days, man has not completed his responsibility, and God's will has remained unfulfilled. According to God's purpose of creation, God's purpose cannot be fulfilled by God alone, but man's cooperation is absolutely necessary, in doing his own part of responsibility to free himself from Satan and evil in his life and that of his family. It is for this reason that the Bible indicates that there have been various attempts to bring about the last days. For example, at the time of Noah, God said, "The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth, for their sake, is full of violence, and behold, I will exterminate them together with the earth." Genesis 6:13. Showing that that time was to be the time of the last days. God intended to end the biblical 1,600-year history of sin and evil through the judgment of the flood. He intended to destroy evil and thus establish the ideal world with his ideal at the center, beginning a new history of goodness through Noah's family, but because of Cam's failure to separate himself from his father by being ashamed of his nakedness and drunkenness, this one could realize its responsibility. Thus God's will to bring the last days to completion could not be realized at that time. However, since his will is absolute, God prolonged his dispensation. Based on the prophets, God continued the dispensation for the last days, that is, to conclude the false and evil history of sin, evil, and spiritual and physical submission to Satan, by mankind, judging sin and evil, and to prepare the building of his ideal world. On this basis, Jesus came to end the history of evil and fulfill the ideal for creation. Therefore, his coming constitutes a further attempt to bring about the last days. This is why Jesus said he came to bring judgment, John 5:22, and it is why Malachi prophesied, "Yes. Behold, the day is coming blazing like a furnace, and all the arrogant and all who work evil will be straw. And the coming day will consume them. It will leave them neither root nor branch." Malachi 3:19. However, lacking faith in Jesus, John the Baptist and the people of Israel failed in their responsibility, thus the fulfillment of God's will was postponed until the second advent of the Messiah. For this reason Jesus said, "And as it happened in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man." Luke 17:26. And also in Matthew 24:29 it is foretold that at the second advent of the Messiah miracles and signs will occur in heaven, as had been prophesied for the days of Noah and Jesus. Genesis 6:6, 7, 13 and Isaiah 24:19 respectively.